Good afternoon. Close enough. Time is it? That's close enough. It's noon. Good afternoon. Jeff Dawson from Dallas, Texas. No, we're not going to talk about politics. Let's talk about something else that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is baseball. Love the sport. It's the only sport I could really play. I was any good at. Yeah, I could play football, but baseball is what I could excel at. But I knew when it was time to stop, whether it was playing, whether it was coaching, whether it was umpiring. Well, umpiring, that's because of surgeries that I had on my back and eyes, and that's really not a good thing if you're an umpire. You got to have good eyesight, and I'd still like to give it a go, but I don't know if the eyes will match up. But one of these days we'll try it. So the top story is Albert Pujols. Too bad Don Meredith isn't around, because he could have sung the song to him, turn off the lights, the party's over. And it is. If you look at Albert's numbers, and let's just go through these since 2015, his average: 244, 268, 241, 245, 244, 224, and 198. And let's remember, you're paying this guy $24 million a year. RBIs, and starting in 2015, 95. 16 and 17 were good years at 119 and 101. And then 64, 93, 25, and 12. Now, how many games did he play in these years, starting with 2015? 151, 152, 149. Okay, that's pretty good. 117, 131, 39 in the asterisk shortened season, and 24. How many championships have the Angels won since he came over in 2011? 0. And yes, there are a lot of factors that play into that. It's just not one person. But that was the whole reason of bringing him over, because remember, they had him, they had Hamilton, and they got C.J. Wilson from the Rangers, and all three were making $20 million a year. And what did they do? They went to the playoffs once. They got knocked out in the first round, and that's been it. Now, some can say, well, that was Mike Scioscia. Okay, you can blame some of it on the manager. You can blame some of it on the team, but what you can look at is the Angels were trying to buy a World Series just like the Yankees tried back in the 80s. And how did that work for Steinbrenner? Well, it didn't, and it didn't work for the Angels. It doesn't work. But Albert, like many of these players nowadays, for whatever reason, they can't put their ego aside and look at what is best for the team. He's 41 years old. We know he's been injured. What he couldn't do is what most of them can't. They can't look at what's best for the team. Look at Aaron Rodgers. The Packers sold the state of Wisconsin to him. But since he's getting, 37? Going on 38? The Packers are looking to the future, and the future doesn't include Aaron Rodgers as a starter. Gee, didn't we see that with Brett Favre? The Packers offered him the entire state of Wisconsin, and he went to the New York Jets because he said he wasn't finished playing. He couldn't on the wall. And the only reason they did as good as they did when he went to the Vikings is because all those winter games were played in stadiums. Look at the schedule. We saw with the Jets, because they were like 7-1 or 8-0 the first half of the season, and everyone was just raving about him. I said, wait till it gets cold. And it got cold. And he couldn't play in the cold. But you can play in the cold when you're indoors, can't you? Yeah. Of recent history, I'm a big Jim Leyland fan because Jim Leyland, I mean, he had a great career with the Pirates, with the Marlins, with the Tigers. But Jim Leyland woke up one day and realized it's time to move on. And he did. Without the hint of a comeback, as we have seen with so many players through the past, where they have this big fall to raw and this big retirement party. You know, Michael Jordan comes to mind. They had no intention of retiring. And the media goes nuts over it. Oh, they're back. They're back. It's the second coming. The second coming of what? Jordan was an anomaly. And people will argue, they'll throw Tom Brady into this mix because he's a little older than Albert Pujols. But you know, Tom's in a hell of a lot better shape. He has not suffered the injuries Albert Pujols has. But I just hope we don't see a repeat of what happened to Joe Montana when the Niners realized it's time for us to move on and make Steve Young our quarterback. Thank you for your service. Goodbye. He goes to the Chiefs. The Chiefs do really good that first year. The second year, he gets just laid out about halfway through the season and realizes it's a young man's game. My body can't take it. I'm hanging up the helmet. He should have done it after the first season. Actually, he should have done it after the Niners let him go. But they just let their egos get in the way. And here we go again. We have Martinez, Ortiz, and Beltre very upset at how the Angels front office handled this. They gave him a choice. This was his last season. Last year of the contract. So he's still going to get paid. When a player can't realize that the game is not about them, then we have a problem. And this is what we're looking at. Albert won't let his ego sit on the bench. I can still play the game. You're hitting 198, 12 RBIs, 24 games. No, it's time. And that's what's best for the Los Angeles, Anaheim, California Angels, whatever you want to call them. They've had so many name changes. I can't keep up with who they are. When I was growing up as California Angels, we understood it. We moved on. We didn't worry about it. But they've had so many name changes. I mean, it's just like the Oakland A's, not the A's, the Raiders past owner. Is that Davis? They moved so many times, they didn't know which stadium they were going to play in, much less which town they were going to be called. Al Davis. But I have no sympathy for Albert. It's time. As I said earlier, that line from Moneyball. We don't know if it's going to be when we're 18. We don't know if it's going to be when we're 40. But eventually, we're all told we can't play the game. And Albert, that is what's going on. It's time. It's time to look at the future for the Angels. They're trying to look at the future because they obviously haven't had one to write home about in the last 10 years it's been there. One playoff appearance? No, that's not good. And you've got the highest played center fielder in baseball. What's Trout making? $33 million a year? Money's not going to buy a World Series in California. Not for the Angels. So, yeah, Albert, if some other team wants to pick you up as a DH, so be it. But, you know, you could have performed that same job for the team that took a chance, gave you a 10-year contract for $24 million a year, that you could have stayed and helped coach the kids coming up. But for whatever reason, you superstars just think you're too damn good for that. And for that, I have no respect. I wasn't happy when you left the Cardinals. You said it wasn't about money. Well, that was a lie. $24 million for a 10-year guaranteed contract. That was all about the money. Cardinals, would have given you a 5-year contract. But they weren't selling their franchise to one player. And that's what these guys don't get. No one is bigger than the game. And it takes 25, now the roster's 26 that can suit up to win a championship. Not one. You were great for the game. No one can deny that. But when you looked at the first part of your career and the estimated records you were going to set, you were going to break every record there was. And then you got the big money. Were you a productive player? Yeah. First half of that 10-year contract you were. And yes, in 16 and 17, you were very good. I mean, 119 RBIs and 101. That's still impressive. That's good. But then the production falls off, and that's what it's all about. Production. Produce. What have you done for us today? And when I'm looking at what I'm paying, I still got to swallow that every time I cut that check. But I can get a couple of at least 2, if not 3, good prospects for what we were paying one that we can develop and bring up and look towards the future. And that's what it's all about. It is the future of the game. For the players that think, well, the game won't live without me, I don't know where they've come up with that thinking, but it's wrong. I mean, Gehrig, Ruth, Whitey Ford, Roberto Clemente, Reggie Jackson, Bob Gibson. Man, I can go through a list of great players. Sandy Koufax, Alan Trammell, Jim Palmer, McNally, Cuellar, Sanguillen, Stargell. I mean, the list is long. The game will keep moving forward without you because that's what it does. It's just like a business. They keep going forward. You're only as good as what you did today. Excuse me. But the problem with a lot of these athletes is they don't realize that. So I have no sympathy for Albert Pujols on what the Angels did. Let the media scream and cry. Let players come to his defense. But he made the choice. And you know they were talking about this in the offseason. Albert, it's time. He wanted to be an everyday player. And the front office said, ain't happening. You can't do it. We've got to start developing new players. Well, I can still play first base. Well, Albert, you know, you can either retire now and get your final year's paycheck, which you're going to get regardless, or we're going to release you during the season. It's your choice. And he didn't think they'd do it until Joe scratched him from the lineup and released him the next day. It's a choice. So if you feel sorry for Albert Pujols, go ahead and leave a comment. That's fine. I don't. There comes a day when we're all told you can't play the game. And I'll probably go over this on my radio show this Saturday on BBS Radio 1. And if you like the content that I come up with, like, subscribe, tell your friends, because I do believe the more the merrier. I enjoy a lively discussion, whether people agree with me or they don't, but at least we get to discuss the issues at hand. And that's all I have for this afternoon in Dallas, Texas.